2. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me, I also have Septum Sim. Welcome back, sir.
Good to be back.
Awesome. And today we're going to talk about 3 developmentally short silent films that were produced, edited, and distributed from the Edison Labs. Brandon, or Septum, whichever you want to be called, why don't you tell me what's your thoughts on these 3 short silent films, and then I'll kind of go into describing what I felt or saw about these films.
Well, looking at them, it is amazing when you look at history. I have always been a big fan of history. As you know, I am a big fan of physical media. That's what my channel is all about. And of course, getting the Kino's release of the Edison movies, I was able to take a look at these again through a physical light instead of just through the YouTube, which you can look at all these in YouTube. And looking at these are, of course, very early tests. I mean, we're talking 1880s and early 90s tests. I mean, this is taking a new device, a new format, and broadcasting for the first time. Well, maybe not broadcasting, but showing it for the first time. And the very first one, I believe, wasn't even clear. It was just, you could just tell that there was movement. But it's that concept, I think, of you have that picture of something happening way back in a time that's beyond us both, unless you're a lot older than you look.
Of television was kind of a drive for a lot of people at that point in time. So being able to capture any kind of an image on what Edison called the kinetoscope, eventually from his Edison labs, was a development in technology that no one had even heard of. I mean, I'm sure back then. It all started with how people would photograph dead people. And then I believe they animated some of those photographs, and the thing that they came out in these 3, and these 3 were called Monkey Shines, which is not to be confused with the 1980s film Monkey Shines. But ultimately, to me, yeah, the first minute of this series is definitely very fuzzy, but supposedly it was just basic movements that the man was making. It's like the director said, "Here, put your right hand up here, put your left hand up here," but in a way, it looks like the dude's doing kung fu, but it could be just him giving a pose here, putting on something so that they can at least test this subject. So, but the directors involved in the first testing of the films were William K. L. Dickson and William Heise, or Heise. And the first was shot in June of 1989, and it starred, I guess, a guy named John Ott. So, what do you think of the first a film besides it being fuzzy? What do you think that this film technically means? Can we take it seriously, or because these are test subjects or test films, what do you think of them?
Well, I consider Thomas Edison probably one of the foremost mad scientists of the 20th century and late 19th century, in many ways. And to him, most things were experiments. And this, to me, comes across exactly what it is, a scientific experiment. As was stated, and one of the things I liked about the movie Hugo, which we had done on this channel, of course, check that video out after you've done here, see. But one of the things there is looking at it as motion pictures would have been considered a fad by most people, but even here, it's even before that. It is a wonder, and to me, that's an important thing. This is history in the making. Like the first photographs, like the first audio recordings. I don't know about. I know the Lumiere brothers had some involvement also in developing cameras, but I don't really know who came first, really, in the end.
Some believe that. Well, it's always a wonder exactly who invented the first camera. Many people believe that the Lumiere brothers were the first pioneers of the filming venture, but I know that Thomas Edison paved a lot of road to build what is now considered the camera for today.
First film studio, really, because that one on the back of the box being his first film studio.
Oh yeah. So ultimately, what did you think of the second film that in this it was supposed to be originally a trilogy, but the third one was lost? So
well, the second one was clearer, obviously, a little bit more focus in place, though not as clear as a lot of the other tests that came later. Again, I can tell that these three were all in that vein, experiments. And like I say, we are witnessing an act of science, like people testing a chemical formulation for the first time, watching baking soda and, gosh, what was it, vinegar explode when put together.
I would have to concur with you with the second film. It was definitely more clear. You can tell that it wasn't just an unfocused image, which I believe when you turn on a device such as like the camera that they were starting to film on, which they had no idea whether it would work or whether or how it would work. I'm sure they had kind of an idea, but Edison was ultimately the inventor behind this, this film, this camera. And I think the first test was more or less, the first images that they could capture, and they weren't quite, entirely ready. And I think that the film might have been actually better the second time around because, they hadn't quite gotten that image down. And then it's quite possible that because the third one isn't even on this collection, which Kino put out a nice collection here. What do you think? Evidently, it's called Edison, the Invention of the Movies, which we'll get to all of the material on this Kino video release. But the only thing that I will say is that the case of this is entirely crappy, although the artwork on it is cool.
Oh, it looks beautiful.
It looks beautiful. I'm sure we can do this on here as well. Kind of show them what the artwork on the outside of this thing looks like. So you have that picture of the man kissing the woman, and then you've got some photos of on the background here, and then it kind of tells and goes into detail on what's on each of the lists here. So, but as you can see, this is paper, and
looking at how it is, I mean, you see how that is. I mean, yeah, like you've shown it. I mean, these are the discs.
Yeah, I mean, personally. Oh wait, what does yours look like?
See, mine has this, and then it opens up like this. Oh, and I drop it.
Oh, yours has actual sleeves.
You see, and it has these little discs, but they're in the cardboard.
Yours is even more crappier than mine. Want to see what mine looks like?
Oh, let's see. Oh, you actually have little plastic thing. I would actually like that. That's less damage to the discs. Well, I usually have a lot of respect for Keynote.
It seems like there were different releases for these. So,
and all being said, these are very beautiful transfers for what they're getting, and Keynote does an excellent job with special features, and having 140 of these short films.
I know, and the short film. I think there are some serials in here too, right?
Oh yes.
Which, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what a cereal is, it's not the thing that you eat in the morning for breakfast. But normally, what a cereal is a mini series that's a little bit longer than a series, and what they used to call the like the television series that we see on regular TV, and they normally were either in 12 chapters or 15 chapters, or sometimes they didn't even finish them. So, but ultimately they were longer episodes of the similar things. And Edison was in fact a producer and of some serials at one point in time. So, but we'll get into some of those later. I'm sure there will be plenty of material that we can cover over time. But going back to the second Monkey Shines film, so ultimately number 2, which was also done in 1890. This one basically was clearer, and the actor in here, his name was Giuseppe Sacco Albanese. So I believe that the actor in here was actually Italian. Wouldn't you say?
Probably. Of course, some of this stuff just gets lost in time. I mean, this is something that took place, I would say 100 years ago, but then I'd be 30 years too too soon. It's I mean, that's the thing, is some of these small players are lost. I'm surprised we have the name.
Well, the director Dickson described this process, the process that they were doing, as being a sheet of celluloid measuring 2.5 inches by 13 5/8 inches. So, evidently, in 1895, which then followed some experiments with drums over which sheets of sensitized celluloid film were drawn, the edges being pressed into a narrow slot in the surface, similar in construction to the old tinfoil phonograph. A starting and stopping device was also applied. The pictures were then taken spirally to the number of 200 or so, but were limited in size owing to the rotundity of surface, which only brought the center of the picture into focus.
Yeah.
The sheet of celluloid was then developed and then placed upon a transparent drum, bristling at its outer edge with brass pins. When the brass was rapidly turned, these came into contact with the primary current of an induction coil, and each image was lighted up with a Geissler tube. Placing inside the drum, the primary wire of which, operated by the pins, produced a rupture of the primary current, which in its turn, through the medium of the second current, lighted the Geissler tube at the precise moment when a picture crossed its range of view. What do you think about that?
That is very scientific.
It's a lot of a mouthful, not exactly entirely as understandable to us because we weren't born, scientists. But I could definitely see how, this was definitely an educational way of shooting a film. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's a step way beyond what they have to do today. There's not even development now; it just goes all digital. It's it's amazing how the process has changed.
So before we go go off the air here, was there anything that else that you wanted to say here about these three films?
Well, two of them can be viewed unless you want to get this wonderful set that Kino produces, and if you catch them on one of their sales, which they do during the holidays, you can find it. Just be careful with the discs. Though, despite I hate how they put it in the paper, it is a cool looking set. But if you don't want to get it there, all of these are readily available online, and I would recommend anybody to check out some of this because what you're looking at is film history.
Oh yeah,
film, seeing where it started, it's always worthwhile.
I would definitely have to say so too. I mean, I've had an interest in silent films from day one, and I just love how much of history that we have seen on film. I mean, there were many different people who made claim to being the pioneers of putting imagery to point on point films, and what detail that still to this day we can see in how old some of the film is, especially since there was a lot of films used during the war that even Nosferatu was thought to have been lost for quite some time, from 1922, because it was destroyed. So there are many different films from the silent era that were lost, including some of the films like that have to do like A Trip to the Moon, and films of that nature. So I think that the era of the silent film was an age to comprehend. What do you think?
I think so. It was a different time, but it is a wonder. People used more. I think people used more of their minds at that point. You had to be able to wrap your mind around this and put extra thought into it. Whereas today, it's a lot less in the way of thought, and that's something that I miss seeing in this day and age.
And I think that many people who had never seen moving images on a screen had never actually gained any kind of imagination until some of the thoughts were put um, onto moving images. So to me, when someone takes their significant other to a theater and watches an entertaining film, it touches them their mind in a way where they're entertained. Some movies are meant to make you laugh. Some are meant to make you cry. But some of it goes to the artistic. Your artistic side of your mind, where you're awed at its like say you're seeing a film from 100 years ago, and it still has a breath of life, and that's what Edison brings to the table, and you have to give him much credit and. To me, much respect for doing what he actually was able to do. Even though I know that there's a controversy with him and Tesla, but in any case, do you have any more thoughts?
I think that most of it's been summed up. I mean, what we have behind us is, I don't consider it just, basic entertainment. I look at it as a library. It is a library of many adventures, many thoughts, many dreams put into the physical form. And that is how film is. And Edison is one of those that helped take those dreams and give them form in reality.
Oh, well said. So on that note, I'm going to take the floor and tell you a little bit about myself. I used to run, or still do, Movies Galore Milwaukee, and I blogged there. But lately, I've been turning towards YouTube to reviewing films of my own. And along the way, I've met Septon Sim here, who also goes by Brandon. He joins us weekly, but we decided to go on and start talking about some of the films in history that maybe our film group might not have enjoyed talking about. So we decided to get a head start on some of the films that were in this Kino collection. And if we can find any other films by Edison, I'm sure that we can watch them and get our thoughts out on the films as we go. So in any case, go ahead, Brandon, take the floor.
Well, of course, I'm Septum Sen. I run a channel, Septum Sen versus the World. Also, I'm on with my wife for a channel called, let's see, That Nerd Couple. And we're hoping to actually get some videos up on both. We're going to be very active this Halloween season. And I hope that you all will come along with us and along with Movies Galore as we strive forward to bring the future and the past.
And stay tuned 2 days from now as we go out into outer space and bring back with us some creepy clowns in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So stay tuned, everyone, and lock your doors. In any case, say goodnight.
Good night.